Marcus dropped his grocery list while holding crying baby Emma. A stranger in an expensive suit picked it up. "I believe this is yours," the billionaire said. That simple act of kindness would change 3 lives forever. Sometimes miracles begin with the smallest gestures of human compassion. Before watching full story, comment below from where you watching. Also like and subscribe for more stories. Marcus wiped the sweat from his forehead as he adjusted baby Emma in his arms. The grocery store felt overwhelming today, just like everything else in his life since Sarah had left them 6 months ago. Emma was only 8 months old, and every day felt like climbing a mountain with no peak in sight. "Okay, sweetheart," he whispered to Emma, who was starting to fuss. "Daddy just needs to get some food and we'll go home." He pulled out the crumpled piece of paper from his jacket pocket, his carefully written grocery list. Every item was essential, every dollar counted. His part-time job at the auto repair shop barely covered rent, let alone groceries, diapers, and formula. But he had to make it work. Emma was counting on him. As Marcus reached for a cart, Emma's crying grew louder. Other shoppers stared, some with sympathy, others with annoyance. He felt his cheeks burn with embarrassment as he tried to soothe her while maneuvering the cart with one hand. "It's okay, baby girl," he murmured, bouncing her gently. "Daddy's here." The grocery list fluttered in the slight breeze from the store's air conditioning. Marcus didn't notice when it slipped from his fingers and drifted to the floor near the produce section. Alexander Hawthorne III was not supposed to be in a regular grocery store. His personal assistant usually handled such mundane tasks. But today he had dismissed his driver and decided to walk, needing space to think about the board meeting that had gone terribly wrong. His billion-dollar empire felt hollow when he had no one to share it with. At 52, Alexander had everything money could buy but nothing that truly mattered. His wife had died in a car accident 5 years ago, and they'd never had children. Every day since then had been about work, deals, and accumulating wealth that felt increasingly meaningless. As he walked through the store's automatic doors, still wearing his $3,000 suit, he noticed he was completely out of place. But something about the normalcy of it all appealed to him. Real people doing real things, living real lives. That's when he heard the baby crying. Alexander turned toward the sound and saw a young man, probably in his early 20s, struggling with a grocery cart and a fussy infant. The man's clothes were clean but worn, his shoes had seen better days, and there was a tiredness in his shoulders that Alexander recognized, the weight of carrying the world alone. As Alexander watched, a piece of paper fluttered past his expensive Italian leather shoes. He bent down and picked it up, immediately recognizing it as a grocery list. The handwriting was careful, almost childlike in its precision. Baby formula, generic brand; diapers, size 3; bread, cheapest kind; peanut butter, bananas, rice, chicken, whatever's on sale; milk, cereal, store brand. At the bottom, in different ink, someone had scratched out several items and written, "Only if money left over." Alexander's throat tightened. He looked up and saw the young man patting his pockets frantically, clearly looking for something. The baby's cries were getting louder, and the father's stress was visible from across the produce section. Marcus felt panic rising in his chest. The list was gone. He'd written it so carefully, calculating exactly what they needed and what he could afford with his last $43. Without it, he might forget something crucial or worse, overspend and not have enough. Emma was now crying at full volume and Marcus felt tears threatening his own eyes. A woman passed by and clicked her tongue disapprovingly. An elderly man shook his head. Marcus wanted to disappear. "I'm sorry," he whispered to Emma, his voice breaking. "Daddy's trying his best." He began mentally reconstructing the list, but stress was making it hard to think clearly. Formula first, that was non-negotiable. Diapers. But what size? His tired mind couldn't remember if he'd written size 3 or size 4. And there were so many other things. Marcus leaned against his cart, feeling defeated before he'd even started. This was supposed to be a simple grocery run, but nothing in his life was simple anymore. Not since Sarah had decided that being a mother was too hard, and being with him was not enough. "Excuse me," a deep voice said behind him. Marcus turned to see an impeccably dressed older man holding a familiar piece of paper. The man's silver hair was perfectly styled, his suit probably cost more than Marcus made in 3 months, and his presence commanded attention even in a grocery store. "I believe this is yours," the man said, extending the grocery list. Marcus felt a wave of relief wash over him. "Thank you so much," he said, reaching for the paper with his free hand while still holding Emma. "I thought I'd lost it forever." The stranger studied Marcus for a moment, his gray eyes kind but intense. "May I ask your name?" "Marcus," he replied, slightly confused but grateful enough to be polite. Marcus Thompson. And this is Emma. Beautiful baby, Alexander said, and something in his voice was gentle in a way that surprised Marcus. I'm Alexander. Alexander had made split-second decisions worth millions of dollars, but something about this moment felt more important than any boardroom negotiation. He looked at the grocery list again, then at Marcus's worn clothes and tired eyes, then at beautiful baby Emma who had finally started to quiet down. Marcus, Alexander said carefully, I know this might seem strange, but would you allow me to buy your groceries today? Marcus blinked, certain he'd misheard. I'm sorry, what? Your groceries? Alexander repeated. I'd like to pay for them. Oh no, sir, I couldn't, Marcus said quickly, his cheeks reddening. That's very kind, but I can handle it. Alexander saw the pride in the young man's eyes, the same pride he'd had when he was starting out, refusing help even when he desperately needed it. But he also saw something else, a father who was barely holding on. Please, Alexander said quietly. I'm not offering out of pity. I'm offering because I see a good father taking care of his child, and I'd consider it an honor to help. Marcus felt his defenses wavering. Emma had settled in his arms, looking up at this distinguished stranger with curious eyes. There was something about Alexander that felt safe, trustworthy. I don't understand, Marcus said. You don't even know me. No, Alexander agreed. But I know what it looks like when someone is carrying the world on their shoulders. And I know what it feels like to be alone. The honesty in Alexander's voice caught Marcus off guard. This man who clearly had everything was talking about being alone? Besides, Alexander added with a slight smile, Emma seems to approve of me. Marcus looked down and realized his daughter was indeed studying Alexander with unusual calm, her big brown eyes wide and alert. What happened next surprised even Alexander himself. Instead of just paying for the items on the list, he found himself walking through the store with Marcus and Emma, having a conversation that felt more natural than any he'd had in years. How old is she? Alexander asked as they moved through the baby aisle. 8 months, Marcus replied, still somewhat stunned by the situation. She's been the best thing in my life since. He trailed off. Since. Alexander prompted gently. Since her mother left us, Marcus finished quietly. Said she couldn't handle being a mom, said I'd never amount to anything anyway. Alexander felt a flash of anger toward a woman he'd never met. She was wrong on both counts, he said firmly. Marcus looked at him with surprise. You don't know that. I know you're here taking care of your daughter despite whatever challenges you're facing. I know you wrote out that list carefully, putting her needs first. I know you're exhausted but you're still trying. That's what good fathers do. They stopped in front of the formula section, and Alexander noticed Marcus reaching for the generic brand listed on his paper. Have you tried this one? Alexander asked, pointing to a premium organic formula. I can't afford that, Marcus said simply. But would it be better for Emma? Marcus nodded reluctantly. The doctor said organic would be ideal, but it's 3 times the price. Without a word, Alexander put 6 containers of the organic formula in the cart. Then he added the vitamins the doctor had probably recommended, the special baby food that would help with development, the premium diapers that would be gentler on Emma's skin. Sir, I can't let you do this, Marcus protested. Alexander, he corrected. And yes, you can. As they continued shopping, Alexander found himself sharing things he hadn't talked about in years. He told Marcus about his wife, Victoria, and how they dreamed of having children but had focused on his business instead, always thinking they had more time. When she died, Alexander said quietly as they stood in the cereal aisle, I realized that all the money in the world couldn't bring back a single conversation we never had, a single moment we postponed for later. Marcus listened, holding Emma close. I'm sorry for your loss. Thank you. Alexander picked up a box of Emma's baby cereal, the expensive kind with extra nutrients. What about you? What do you dream of doing? Marcus laughed, but there was no humor in it. Surviving mostly, getting through each day. Before Emma though, what did you want to be? Marcus was quiet for a long moment. I wanted to be a teacher, he finally said. Elementary school. I was in college when Sarah got pregnant. Had to drop out to work to support them both. She left anyway. You could go back to school, Alexander said. With what money? What time? Who would watch Emma? Alexander didn't answer immediately, but Marcus could see him thinking. It made him nervous and hopeful at the same time. By the time they reached the checkout, their cart was overflowing. Alexander had quietly added items far beyond the original list: fresh vegetables, quality meat, household supplies, even some toys for Emma. Marcus had protested at first, but Alexander's quiet determination was impossible to argue with. "This is too much," Marcus said as they waited in line. "I don't know how I'll ever repay you." "You don't need to repay me," Alexander replied. "But I do have a proposition for you." Marcus tensed. "What kind of proposition?" "Nothing inappropriate," Alexander said quickly, seeing Marcus's concern. "I run a company. Actually, several companies. I'm always looking for good people, honest, hardworking, reliable people. Would you be interested in a job?" "Doing what?" Marcus asked suspiciously. "I fix cars. I don't know anything about business." "I have car dealerships," Alexander said. "And I need someone I can trust to help manage them. Someone who understands cars and, more importantly, understands what it means to work hard for what you have." Marcus stared at him. "Are you serious?" "Dead serious. The position would pay enough for you to support Emma comfortably and maybe even take some evening classes if you still want that teaching degree." The grocery bill came to over $300. Marcus watched in amazement as Alexander handed over his credit card without even looking at the total. The cashier, a middle-aged woman named Rosa, kept glancing between them with curiosity. "You got yourself a good friend there, honey," she told Marcus quietly as Alexander stepped away to take a phone call. "I just met him 20 minutes ago," Marcus replied, still in disbelief. Rosa raised her eyebrows. 20 minutes? And he's buying all this for you and your baby?" "Apparently." "Well," Rosa said, bagging the last items, "that man's either an angel or he sees something special in you. Either way, don't let pride get in the way of a blessing." When Alexander returned, Marcus was standing by their overflowing cart with Emma in his arms, looking overwhelmed. "Having second thoughts?" Alexander asked gently. "About the groceries or the job offer?" "Both." Marcus looked down at Emma, who was contentedly chewing on her fist. "I need to think about the job. I don't want charity." "It's not charity," Alexander assured him. "I wouldn't offer you a position managing millions of dollars worth of inventory out of charity. I'd offer it because I think you have the character to handle the responsibility." "How can you know that from one conversation?" Alexander smiled. "Because in one conversation, you've shown me more integrity than some people I've known for years. You put your daughter first, you work hard, you don't make excuses, and you haven't asked me for anything. That tells me everything I need to know." As they loaded the groceries into Marcus's beat-up Honda Civic, Alexander noticed the car seat was properly installed, but the car itself had seen better days. The paint was faded, there was a dent in the passenger door, and it made a concerning noise when Marcus started it. "Marcus," Alexander said carefully, "how reliable is this car?" "Reliable enough," Marcus replied defensively. "For getting Emma to doctor appointments? To daycare? What happens if it breaks down?" Marcus's jaw tightened. "I'll fix it. I always do." Alexander nodded, understanding the pride behind the words. "I'm sure you will. But what if there was a better option?" "Like what?" Alexander pulled out his phone and made a quick call. "David?" "Yes, it's Alexander. I need you to bring one of the Accords from the lot to Peterson's Grocery on 5th Street. The blue one we just got in." "Yes, now." "And bring the paperwork." Marcus stared at him. "What are you doing?" "Ensuring that Emma has safe, reliable transportation." "I can't accept a car from you." "You're not accepting it," Alexander said calmly. "You're going to earn it. The job I offered you comes with a company car. This is just an advance on your employment package. But I haven't even said yes to the job yet." Alexander looked at him seriously. "Marcus, I've been in business for 30 years. I can read people. You're going to say yes because you know this is the right thing for Emma. The question is whether you'll torture yourself with doubt first or trust that sometimes good things happen to good people." 20 minutes later, a pristine blue Honda Accord pulled into the parking lot. A professional-looking man in his 30s got out and walked over to Alexander with a folder and a set of keys. "David Martinez, meet Marcus Thompson," Alexander said. "Marcus, David runs 3 of my dealerships." David shook Marcus's hand with a warm smile. "Pleasure to meet you, Marcus. Alexander speaks very highly of you." Marcus looked confused. "But we just met." "Alexander's a good judge of character," David said diplomatically. "The car's all ready for you. Insurance, registration, everything's handled." Marcus felt like he was in a dream. This is happening too fast. Alexander stepped closer, his voice gentle but firm. Marcus, when I lost my wife, I learned that life happens fast whether we're ready or not. The good things deserve to be grabbed hold of just as much as we prepare for the bad things. Emma started fussing in Marcus's arms, and Alexander held out his hands. May I? Surprisingly, Marcus found himself handing Emma over. Alexander held her with surprising naturalness, and she settled immediately. Hello, beautiful girl, Alexander said softly. What do you think? Should your daddy take a chance on an old businessman? Emma gurgled and reached for Alexander's silver hair, making him laugh, a sound that seemed to surprise him. She likes you, Marcus observed. The feeling is mutual, Alexander replied, gently bouncing Emma. I haven't held a baby in, well, ever actually. As Marcus stood in the grocery store parking lot, surrounded by bags of food he couldn't have afforded, looking at a car he couldn't have imagined owning, holding a job offer that could change everything, he felt overwhelmed by the sheer impossibility of it all. Why? He asked Alexander finally. Why are you doing this for us? Alexander was quiet for a long moment, still holding Emma, who seemed perfectly content in his arms. Because 5 years ago I had everything and lost what mattered most, he said finally. Today I met someone who has what matters most but is struggling with everything else. Maybe we can help each other. Help each other how? You need stability, opportunity, a chance to build a life for Emma. I need. Alexander paused, looking down at the baby in his arms. I need to remember what it feels like to do something that matters. To be part of something real. Marcus felt tears welling up in his eyes. I don't know anything about running a business. You'll learn. I didn't know anything when I started either. But you know about responsibility, about working hard, about not giving up when things get tough. That's harder to teach than business skills. And if I fail? Then you fail forward, Alexander said simply. But I don't think you will. Emma won't let you. Marcus looked at his daughter, peaceful in this stranger's arms, and made his decision. Okay, he said quietly. Yes. The next Monday morning, Marcus found himself in the offices of Hawthorne Automotive Group, wearing a new suit that Alexander had insisted was necessary for the position, and holding Emma, who was scheduled to start at the company's on-site daycare facility. This is surreal, Marcus told David Martinez as they walked through the showroom. Alexander has a way of making impossible things seem natural, David replied. When he told me he'd found our new regional manager in a grocery store, I thought he'd finally lost it. But after talking to you on the phone this week, I understand. Marcus had spent the week in a whirlwind of paperwork, interviews, and orientation. Alexander had been right. The job was real, demanding, and perfect for someone willing to work hard and learn fast. The key thing to remember, David continued, is that Alexander doesn't do anything halfway. He's investing in you because he believes in you. Don't make him regret it. I won't, Marcus promised. As they reached the daycare, Marcus hesitated. Emma had never been in daycare before. It was another leap of faith in a week full of them. She'll be fine, David assured him. Sarah Chin runs our daycare. She's amazing. Most of our executive staff have their kids here. The daycare was beautiful, bright, clean, with caring staff and happy children. As Marcus handed Emma to Sarah, he felt the familiar pang of leaving her with someone else, but also something new, hope that this time, it was leading to something better. Go build an empire, Sarah told him with a smile. Emma will be here when you get back. Marcus's first day was overwhelming in the best possible way. Alexander had arranged for him to shadow different department heads, learning everything from inventory management to customer relations to financial planning. The most important thing, Alexander told him during lunch, is to understand that we're not just selling cars. We're helping people solve problems, achieve dreams, get to work, take family trips. Every transaction is about people. Like you solved my problem? Marcus asked. Alexander smiled. We solved each other's problems. You gave me a reason to remember why I built this company in the first place. As the afternoon wore on, Marcus found himself naturally connecting with the staff and customers. His experience working on cars gave him credibility, and his genuine care for people came through in every interaction. He's a natural, Marcus overheard David telling Alexander. The staff loves him already. By the end of his first day, Marcus felt exhausted but exhilarated. When he picked up Emma from daycare, she seemed happy and well cared for. How was your first day, Daddy? Sarah asked playfully as Emma reached for Marcus. Scary and wonderful, Marcus replied honestly. That's exactly how first days should be. Over the following weeks, Marcus threw himself into his new role with determination and gratitude. He arrived early, stayed late, and absorbed everything he could learn. Alexander became not just his boss but his mentor, teaching him about business strategy, leadership, and the responsibility that came with success. "Remember," Alexander told him one evening as they reviewed monthly reports, "every decision you make affects dozens of families, our employees, their children, our customers. That's not pressure, that's purpose." Marcus was also taking evening classes, working toward completing his degree. It was exhausting managing work, school, and caring for Emma, but for the first time in months he had hope for the future. "You're going to burn yourself out," Alexander warned one Thursday when he found Marcus in the office at 9 p.m., textbooks spread across his desk while Emma slept in her carrier. "I can handle it," Marcus insisted. "I know you can. The question is whether you should." Alexander sat down across from him. "What if there was a better way?" "Like what?" "Like me helping with Emma sometimes. Like having support instead of doing everything alone." Marcus looked up from his textbooks. "Why would you do that?" Alexander's expression grew soft as he looked at sleeping Emma. "Because I've discovered I enjoy spending time with her. Because you've become the son I never had. Because this is what families do for each other." That Sunday, Alexander arrived at Marcus's apartment with groceries and a plan. "We're cooking dinner together," he announced. "And I'm teaching Emma to play piano." "She's 10 months old," Marcus pointed out. "Never too early to start," Alexander replied seriously, pulling a small keyboard from his car. As Marcus watched Alexander patiently help Emma press keys and make noise that barely resembled music, he realized something had fundamentally changed in all their lives. The lonely billionaire and the struggling single father had somehow become a family. "Alexander," Marcus said as they sat down to dinner, a meal that actually tasted good because Alexander knew how to cook, "can I ask you something personal?" "Shoot." "Do you ever regret not having children?" Alexander was quiet for a long moment, watching Emma in her high chair, babbling happily and making a mess with her food. "I used to," he said finally. "But now I think maybe I was just waiting for the right child to find me." Marcus felt his throat tighten with emotion. "She's not your responsibility." "No," Alexander agreed. "She's my joy. There's a difference." As months passed, their unconventional family settled into a routine that worked. Alexander would pick up Emma from daycare twice a week, giving Marcus time for his classes. Weekends often found them at Alexander's house, a mansion that had felt empty for years but now echoed with Emma's laughter and Marcus's questions about everything from business strategy to how to install a car seat properly. "I never thought I'd see Alexander Hawthorne crawling around on the floor making baby noises," David told Marcus one day. "He's different with her," Marcus agreed. "Softer. Happier." "Different with you too," David observed. "He's been like a ghost since Victoria died. You and Emma brought him back to life." Marcus was excelling in his role, exceeding every expectation. His natural empathy and work ethic had made him popular with both staff and customers, and sales at his locations had increased significantly. "I have a proposition for you," Alexander said one evening as they worked on Marcus's business degree homework together. "Another one?" Marcus asked nervously. "I want to make you a partner," Alexander said simply. Marcus dropped his pencil. "What?" "A junior partner, but a real partner. You've earned it. You've proven yourself, and frankly, I want to know that if something happens to me, you and Emma will be taken care of." "Alexander, I can't." "Yes, you can. And more importantly, you should. Emma deserves a father who owns part of something great, not just someone who works for someone else." On Emma's first birthday, Alexander did something that surprised everyone, including himself. He asked Marcus if he could legally adopt Emma as his granddaughter. "It doesn't change anything between us," he explained. "You're her father, always will be. But I want her to know she has a grandfather who loves her. I want her to inherit something someday. I want to be family officially, not just practically." Marcus, holding 1-year-old Emma as she tried to eat her birthday cake with her hands, felt tears streaming down his face. "She already calls you Papa," he pointed out. "And you call me Alexander, but I think of you as my son," Alexander replied quietly. The paperwork was complicated, but Alexander's lawyers made it work. On a sunny Tuesday in March, Judge Morrison signed the papers that made their chosen family legal. "Congratulations, Grandpa," Marcus said, handing Emma to Alexander. "Congratulations, son," Alexander replied. 2 years later, Marcus graduated with his business degree, summa cum laude. Alexander was in the front row of the auditorium, holding 3-year-old Emma, who was wearing a tiny graduation cap and cheering loudly when Marcus's name was called. After the ceremony, as they celebrated at Alexander's house, Marcus reflected on how much had changed since that day in the grocery store. "Do you ever think about how different things would be if you hadn't picked up that grocery list?" Marcus asked. Alexander, who was helping Emma color in a picture book, smiled. "Every day. Best decision I ever made." "Picking up the paper?" "No," Alexander said, looking up at Marcus. "Deciding to care about the person who dropped it." Marcus was now running 3 dealerships and taking business classes at night, working toward his MBA. Emma was thriving in preschool, bilingual in English and the Spanish she was learning from Rosa, who had become her honorary grandmother after becoming friends with Alexander. "Papa, story?" Emma demanded, climbing into Alexander's lap. "What story do you want to hear?" Alexander asked. "The grocery story," Emma said, clapping her hands. It had become her favorite bedtime story, the tale of how her daddy dropped a piece of paper and her papa picked it up, and how that one small act of kindness had created their family. Alexander started a program at his companies called Second Chances, providing jobs, childcare, and educational opportunities for single parents struggling to make ends. Marcus ran the program, using his own experience to identify and help people who needed a hand up, not a handout. "Every person we help," Alexander told the local newspaper, "is someone's Marcus. Someone with potential who just needs an opportunity." The program was a success, helping dozens of families and earning recognition from the mayor. But for Alexander and Marcus, the real reward was seeing lives changed, families stabilized, children cared for. "This is what wealth should do," Alexander told Marcus one evening as they reviewed applications for the program. "It should create more wealth, more opportunity, more hope." Emma, now 4, had her own desk in both Alexander's office and Marcus's, complete with toy phones and pretend paperwork. She would conduct meetings with her stuffed animals and announce important decisions about snack time and playground policies. "She's going to run this company someday," David observed. "She's going to run everything someday," Alexander replied proudly. When Marcus met Sarah, not his ex, but a teacher at Emma's preschool who shared his values and loved Emma like her own, Alexander was the one who encouraged him to pursue the relationship. "You deserve love," Alexander told him. "Real love. Emma deserves a mother who chooses to be there." The wedding was small but perfect, held at Alexander's house with Emma as the flower girl and Alexander walking Marcus down the aisle since Marcus had no father of his own. "Today I'm not gaining a daughter-in-law," Alexander said in his toast. "I'm gaining another daughter to spoil and worry about." Sarah had embraced their unusual family structure from the beginning, understanding that Alexander wasn't just Marcus's boss or even just Emma's adopted grandfather, he was the cornerstone that held their world together. "Promise me something," Alexander said to Sarah during their dance at the reception. "What's that?" "Promise me you'll make him believe he deserves all this happiness." "I promise," Sarah replied. "But only if you promise to stop acting like you don't deserve it too." Marcus stood in the same grocery store where it all began, now shopping with his wife Sarah, their 6-year-old son Michael and 13-year-old Emma. Alexander, now 67 and officially retired but still meddling in company business daily, was with them, pushing the cart and letting Michael ride on the front. They were shopping for the ingredients for their weekly Sunday dinner, a tradition that had started in Marcus's tiny apartment and had grown to include not just their family, but Rosa from the grocery store, David and his family, several employees from the Second Chances program, and whoever else needed a place at the table. "Dad, tell Michael the grocery store story," Emma said as they passed the produce section. "Again?" Marcus laughed. "You've heard it 1,000 times. It's a good story," Emma insisted. "Besides, Michael doesn't remember it right." As Marcus began the familiar tale, Alexander noticed a young woman struggling with 2 small children and a cart full of generic brands, counting items carefully as she shopped. Her grocery list was written on the back of an envelope, and her shoes had been repaired multiple times. Alexander caught Marcus's eye and nodded toward the woman. Marcus smiled and nodded back. "Emma," Marcus said quietly, "why don't you and Michael go pick out dessert for tonight? Take your time." As the children ran off with Sarah supervising, Marcus and Alexander approached the young woman. "Excuse me," Alexander said gently, "I couldn't help but notice your children. They're beautiful." The woman looked up warily, clearly tired and stressed. "Thank you. My name is Alexander and this is my son Marcus. We were wondering if you might let us buy your groceries today." The woman's eyes filled with tears. "Oh, I couldn't possibly." "Please," Marcus said softly. "Someone once did the same for me. It changed everything." As they loaded the woman's cart with everything she needed and more, Alexander reflected on how one small act of kindness had rippled outward, creating family, opportunity, love, and now the chance to help someone else. "Do you think she'll say yes to the job interview?" Marcus asked quietly as they watched the woman, whose name was Jessica, accept David's business card. "Look at her children," Alexander replied. "She'll say yes. Good parents always find the courage to take chances for their kids." Emma ran back to them, holding Michael's hand and carrying a container of ice cream. "Did you help someone else today, Papa?" "We all did," Alexander said, lifting her up for a hug. "That's what families do." As they finished their shopping and headed home to prepare for their Sunday dinner, a table that would soon include one more family, another story of kindness transforming lives, Marcus realized that some grocery lists hold more than items to buy. Sometimes they hold the ingredients for miracles. The story that had started with a dropped piece of paper and a stranger's compassion had become a legacy of love, opportunity, and hope that would continue long after the original grocery list had been forgotten. Because the best stories don't really end, they just inspire new beginnings. And somewhere in town, Jessica was calling the babysitter, ironing her best dress shirt, and preparing for an interview that would change her life, just as that long-ago encounter in a grocery store had changed Marcus's, Alexander's, and Emma's lives forever. The circle of kindness was complete and ready to begin again.